Mastering reported speech. Mixed modal verbs for advice. Hello there, English learners. Welcome back to another session, where today we'll be taking a deep dive into a pretty interesting part of the English language, reported speech with mixed modal verbs for advice. Now, if that sounds a little bit complicated, don't worry. We'll break it all down, step by step, with clear examples and exercises to make it easy and fun. So, let's get started. Let's start with the basics. Reported speech, or indirect speech, is when we use our own words to tell what someone else said. For example, he said he was tired. Now, modal verbs like can, could, may, might, will, would, must, shall, should, and ought to express ideas such as ability, possibility, necessity, and permission. But what happens when we use these modal verbs in reported speech? They can change depending on the situation. That's where mixed modals come into the picture. These help us give or report advice in the past, but they can be a bit tricky. So, let's take a closer look. When we report advice with modal verbs, the verbs can shift. This shift often shows the time difference between the moment when the words were spoken and the time of reporting. Here's a simple example. If someone says, "You should study," you might report it as, "He said I should study." But when reporting advice using mixed modal verbs, it can get a little complex. Here are some rules to follow. Should becomes should have plus past participle when advice wasn't followed. Example: "You should visit the doctor." Reported as, "He advised that I should have visited the doctor." Ought to can be reported as ought to have plus past participle for unheeded advice. Example: "You ought to rest." Reported as, "She suggested that I ought to have rested." Let's see some more examples and do some exercises to get a better understanding. Let's say your friend said, "You could go to the park." In reported speech, it would be, "She said I could go to the park." Now, let's spice it up with mixed modals for advice. Your friend said, "You should have gone to the park." In reported speech, it would be, "She said I should have gone to the park." Now, your turn to practice. Convert the following sentences into reported speech. 1. He said, "You might try a new hobby." 2. She advised, "You should take more breaks." 3. They suggested, "You ought to travel more." And there you have it, folks. Mixed modal verbs for advice in reported speech may seem tricky at first, but with practice, you can master them. I hope this video has shed some light on this topic and made it easier for you. Keep practicing the exercises and stay tuned for more English language learning videos. Keep learning, keep growing, and see you in the next session. Happy learning!